Radical self-love born from spite, but make it fashion. Howdy y'all, I'm Mickey, and there's a new trend slash aesthetic cropping up on social media that you might have seen, and you've definitely seen it if you follow me on other platforms, which, if you don't, you totally should. If you've just glanced it on social media, you see that we've got rainbows, we've got glitter, we've got oversaturation, but it's more than just an aesthetic, so what is Trendercore? According to the intro post made by Tumblr user Mars, it's an aesthetic based around radical LGBT plus self-love and pride. The name and a lot of the aesthetic came in response to True Scum, who call basically anyone who's trans in ways that they don't specifically approve of trans trenders. Basically, Trendercore is taking that and making it into something fun and something that can't be used against you anymore. So now that we've established a baseline idea of what Trendercore is, let's get a little more into it. First, what is the aesthetic? Oversaturated pride flags, normal pride flags, pride buttons and pins, pride accessories, glitter, blinkies, I think they're called. They're similar to DeviantArt stamps, rainbows, and so much color. It's a really loud and in-your-face aesthetic to take back the claim that LGBTQ plus people, particularly trans and non-binary people, and especially the ones True Scum make fun of, are too loud and in your face about their identities and about being LGBTQ+. Like, yeah, you know what? I do want to be really loud and proud. There are some smaller subsections of Trendercore that are less neon-based. I think there's pastel Trendercore, and then there's like Trenderwave, which I don't know if that's picked up much, but it was a proposed idea for the same idea but with the vaporwave aesthetic. And then there's Trenderpunk, which is Trendercore but focused a bit more on the kind of spite portion of it and this focus of like punk and rebellion along with Trendercore. Oh, and we've got Trendersonas. That might bring up another big question about Trendercore. What are Trendersonas? Okay, if you've seen my Am I a Trans Trender Part 2 video, or really seen any True Scum account ever, you are probably aware that some of them fancy themselves as artists. What they do is they draw these terrible caricatures to show what a non-valid trans person looks like. And trans person there should be read trans man slash AFAB non-binary person, because True Scum tried to stay away from drawing trans femme people because every time they attempt it, it is indistinguishable from turf art. But the main point of that is that they draw caricatures of what fake trans people look like, and they have a lot of traits that a lot of trans people have, including True Scum, which leads to a lot of internalized problems and whatnot. Basically, Trendersonas are taking the traits that these caricatures have listed as being signs that you're a trender and faking being trans, and then amplifying them. These traits can include having colorful hair, wearing colorful clothing, not binding, wearing skirts or dresses, having pride gear, using lesser known labels, using too many labels, etc. Basically, find the trender within your heart and then put it out into the world. Trendersonas don't have to be based on you. I know people who have done Trendersona challenges where you give them emojis or ideas or concepts and they draw trender versions of that. There are people who draw their OCs as their Trendersonas. But I think, speaking from personal experience here, it can be really fun to see just how much of a trender you truly are. Trendersonas are also based on this idea of taking something that True Scum could potentially try to use against you to hurt you and making it in such a way that it doesn't hurt. You've already owned it, so it doesn't matter if someone tries it. It'd be like, yeah, you're right, I do have an undercut, not right now because it's hella grown out, but it should be an undercut, and I like dyeing my hair, and I'm non-binary, and I have a ton of pride gear, and I use binary terms for myself sometimes despite being non-binary, and oh no, yeah, you're right, you pointed it all out, you sussed it out, I am a trender, take me away, gender police. It can't be used against you if you've already owned it, and already see it as a fun thing. And that's what Trendercore is rooted in. Radical self-love that can make you feel better about yourself and more secure in your identity, and can also combat narrow-minded gatekeeping attempts. I think this particular aesthetic and things like it are really important and have been a long time coming. It's been too long that hatred and gatekeeping have just been accepted online, and basically it's seen as this normal part of the community, and that anyone who deviates from what they should be, which, guess what, all non-cishet people in the eyes of the majority deviate from what a normal person is. You already did it. Nothing's accomplished by placing more restrictions on that. That doesn't work. So in response, instead of trying to appease the people who think gatekeeping is the only option, instead of trying to have the same long, drawn-out conversation over and over again that just doesn't go anywhere, instead of being hurt by people who will criticize your every speck of being you to make sure that you are valid enough, you get to determine that. You should determine that. You are the only one who can determine that. Nobody else gets to determine who you are, or what you are, or how valid you are, or your place in the community. No one else gets to choose that. No one else gets to decide that. Only you do. So yeah, Trendercore's great, and it's a really fun aesthetic. It's basically my already super obnoxious aesthetic, and it's just combined with pride, and it's great. I hope that other people see this attempt at building this radical self-love and putting yourself in charge of determining your own identity, and then just basically ignoring the gatekeepers who think they know a random stranger on the internet they've never spoken to before better than the person does. And I hope that sentiment spreads throughout the community, and that things like this help us become a more secure space, that we're less shaky on whether or not we belong, or whether or not we can help and be part of this, and instead it's what the community was made for, which is fighting together, and then when we inevitably win, having pride together. What's your favorite aesthetic? Do you know anything similar to Trendercore, or have any ideas for what else could be a similar radical self-love aesthetic like Trendercore? It's just a fun thing, while also being pretty important. I think it's a great start for something that could be really good for the community, and I hope it's an idea of what the future will be like. But for now, this is it. Ciao.